3, here we go. Whoa!
There we are!
Kind of. The dog walked through and kicked the camera a minute ago.
You can go adjust that.
Let me adjust that.
Sorry we're running a little bit late. It's just been a little chaos here today. Just busy getting some stuff done. And we're looking all around for some materials tonight, so we got started a little bit late. Apologize for that. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. Especially in when you're doing live stream videos and you just have to be there at a certain time. So, if you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm Jenny, and I'm here with my husband Paul, who's fixing camera, and we own Vinego Artist Bar and Studio in Saltwood, which is southeast Portland, Oregon, and right now it's closed due to COVID-19, so we've been doing a lot of live streaming videos, but this is just our regular subscription box video that we've been doing since, monthly since September. So these are this is for the people who have subscriptions to the box, but you can buy this project as well if you want it just as a single project and without the subscription. It's gobox.com. This one is Mt Fuji, and I'll show you a picture. It's right here. So it's done on the birch board, which you guys got shipped to you in your kit. And the background of the painting is actually the wood. I love that golden part, and I love showing some of the wood grain. Now, birch doesn't have a really super aggressive grain, so it's kind of soft and nice for this painting. Colors, I'll wait till Paul gets back in here because he needs to get the document camera on. But yes, so last week we did the koi painting, and this one will be the same colors that were in that, with the addition of cobalt blue. We didn't use any blue in the last painting. And it also has the silver in it, which is a really fun addition, and it looks really pretty along with this. I did tuck a little tiny koi fish in the bottom of the painting. We need the document camera on.
Oh, that would be helpful.
So yeah, in the original painting, I tucked a little koi that's kind of like your large koi. Oh, this is annoying. Your large koi painting that we did last week is it's right basically a blown up version of. Oh, that's right. I set it aside there. It's a blown up version of the tiny little koi in this. So let's see this.
We are making an awesome first impression for people who have never actually tuned in before. Hello, we're the circus, and we're ready
We're
to
the circus.
do.
No, we don't need that, please.
You got it. I won't.
Okay, so here's what we're going to be painting today. And I just want to make sure it's on the camera. I'm looking at the monitor up there. And let's look at our colors. Now that I can set this aside. Here's our colors. So I did put yellow on there only if you're going to do the koi, because the koi has a little bit of orange in it. But you don't have to put yellow on there at all. And I put way too much. We don't need much at all. And then we've got our red, which we'll use for the flowers. We'll mix it with white. I'm missing white. That's what I'm missing.
Wow, we just hello, Mr. Murphy, are you hanging out in our studio today? Mr. Murphy is here.
We're winning at life tonight.
Woo-hoo!
There we go.
All right.
Okay, white.
You know what? I think I know the problem.
Please pour some of that.
Oh, shoot.
So we've got white
Thanks
and
for
black.
bringing a bottle opener in.
I told you to grab the bottle opener.
Right.
Black and white, bright red, cobalt blue, metallic silver, and if you want, a little yellow. And that will get us through this painting. The wood really absorbs the paint quite a lot, so you probably don't need as much paint as I put on here. I think Paul's going to paint on a heart-shaped board that we had hanging out here, because he makes a lot of our rustic, he makes all of our rustic boards that we do in the organ shape and all that. So, I do need a beverage. He's going to get that for me. So in your box, let me set this aside. You'll notice I have this easel situation here. Is this going to work all right, Paul? It's a little, okay. All right. So Paul thought that rigging this up gives you a better view. We'll see. You can comment if it's not. You can just say, Paul, you're wrong.
Well, if we use the other camera, it gives us a better view.
Okay, so you've got your instruction sheet, and I'm going to guide you through each of these. Every time I teach live, I might change something around a tiny bit. We got the dogs barking. And just for drying time, although it dries really fast on the wood. So, with that being said...
All right, can we get back to being professional like we normally are instead
yeah.
of this sideshow act of
It's like Mercury's in retrograde or something.
Something.
Let's toast. We're toasting to you guys.
I'm actually not going to paint.
Home. Oh, I thought you were going to paint.
I can't find anything to paint.
The heartboard right there.
Oh, we might.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I need this. It has been a day. This is one of those where you want to be able to edit it out, but it's live, so we're just going to go with it.
Wow.
So I've got my 3 brushes. Mm-hmm. You can use the same ones as me. Actually, you have my big brush.
I'm going to turn off the picture-in-picture real quick.
Okay. You can use the same brushes as I am, or your own, but basically a small, medium, and large. I don't even know how much we're going to be using this large brush.
I can't imagine we'd be using it at all.
We might use it to fill in the mountain. So let's have a look here. I'm going to use my medium brush, which the one I have is a number 8 flat. And go ahead and dip it in your water cup. So you should have a water cup on hand, a paper towel or rag to dry your brush on, and then, of course, your paint palette. So let's go ahead and start by, we're going to mix black and cobalt blue.
Sounds awesome.
I'll just kind of scrape these two together. So you get kind of a charcoal color. And you know, I'm going to add a drop or 2 of water to this. We do sort of create a wash here. So yeah, let's add like maybe 3 to 4 drops of water. Thin it down. And we're going to draw Mount Fuji, which Mount Fuji is very tall and pointy. It's kind of like the mountains I always say, avoid drawing pyramids, but this one is actually very pyramid shaped. It's like a triangular shape with a little flat top. So you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to have us draw the horizon line.
Hold on, I'm adjusting the camera, and it's all people getting seasick watching that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, right, so we'll find the halfway point and drop down under it maybe half an inch or so, and just draw a line as straight as you can across here. Take it easy, take it slow. Drink some wine as you go.
Sounds like a chart-topping hip-hop song coming out of you tonight.
So on this painting, the mountain is lined off. I mean, it's not right in the center. I hate it when mountains are right in the center on a painting. It just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look right to me. So I always off-center things. So we just drew this line, which you can see gets covered up, so don't worry if it's not straight. We're going to draw our mountain, but let's go ahead and mark off the top of the mountain first. So we just drew this line. This here is about, I would say, 3.5 to 4 inches from your horizon line to the top of the mountain. So I know my mountain's going to peak right about here. So I'm going to go from this right about here, about 3 to 4 inches. I want you to make like a little 1 inch to half an inch horizontal, half an inch to 1 inch horizontal line. And then our goal here is we are going to go up to this and scoot back down. I want to measure from this line about 1 inch, make a dot, and same thing on this side, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and make a dot. So my mountain is just going to climb up like that and back down. So here we go. Your lines can be a little wobbly because there are big boulders and things on the mountain. Crawling up there. Kind of looks like Mount St. Helens. I might have to fix that. And then back down. So then I'll take a look at it, and I probably built it a little too thick here. Don't you think, Paul? Looks a little thick.
Are you talking about from the horizon line?
Yeah, like Mount Fuji's a little, like, gradual. Like, I mean, it's a little pointier. So here's what I'll do. You might have the same thing as me. If you feel like you need to come up a little higher to get that real pointy look, just redraw it, just like I am.
Yeah. You can always go taller.
Yeah. We got plenty of sky area. So now I'm going to wash my brush and set it aside. And then I'm going to take, and see how you can redraw it anytime because you're going to be painting over stuff all the time. Let's take our biggest brush. Go ahead and dip it in the water cup.
See, we are using the biggest brush.
Yep. And blot it on your towel. Dip it in your watered down paint. Let's go ahead and fill in Mount Fuji. I've always wanted to go there, and I never have had the chance, but for our daughter is she's almost 14, and for her high school graduation trip, she wants to go to Tokyo. I don't know how far is Fuji from there. It's probably well,
can't be too
Japan's
far.
not as huge, so we can maybe do that in one trip.
Well, I think if you're there, you kind of just you find the time to make that secondary trip.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We got a few years to get through all this craziness. And hopefully this COVID-19 craziness will be done in just a matter of weeks. We'll see.
We don't need to talk about that.
I know. We're not going to talk about it. That's the C word. Oh, we're not going to say that.
It's the new C word.
The new C word. All right. So I can still see my outline where I corrected my drawing. That's totally fine. I'm going to add some kind of light blue highlights on there anyways. This is where I might, when you get the shape filled in, you can take a look at it, and it can sometimes look a little bit different when you fill it in. And you might look at it and go, oh, I liked it better when it wasn't filled in, or vice versa. And so this is when, if needed, you know what, Paul, I hate this paper. I'm going to tear it off. I need scissors. So I'm going to take and reshape anything that maybe looks like it might need reshaping. For me, it's like primarily the top of the mountain. There. That's a little better. And you can go ahead and wash your brush off. Now, you might have Mount Bachelor, you might have Mount Hood, you might have the Matterhorn. This does not have to be Mount Fuji. You can change the name of the painting. It can be whatever mountain yours ends up being. That's okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to paint the moon on. Or actually, it's like the sun. I don't know. It could be the sun or the moon. It's about the size of a quarter. So if you want, you could trace a quarter. You could pause me and grab a quarter or something similar in size and trace it. I'm just going to freehand it, and it'll be not perfectly circular. But it's just right over here to the left of the mountain and maybe up a tiny bit. I'll take my littlest brush and dip it in the white paint. Just grab a little white paint on the tip of the bristles. And then take your time. Sometimes when you're drawing a circle, it can be helpful to draw like a rainbow shape first. A lumpy squared off rainbow for me. And then just mirror image that by drawing a smile underneath.
It's a rainbow smile.
Whatever.
You're the one who said it.
Okay, so there I've got it. It's okay. It's not a perfect circle. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to take another sip.
Or 5.
That's really good. That's our, what is it called?
It's
Dee's Wicked Baked Apple Cider.
Dee's
So,
Wicked.
Fill in that sun or moon with the white. I consider it the sun because there's no craters or anything, and it kind of looks like it's during the day. Yeah, so Dee's Wicked Baked Cider. We, Paul did a quick little stop off at the studio today and raided the fridge. Since we're closed, we figure we might as well make use of some of that that's sitting around there.
It's doing nobody any good just being locked away in its little tomb of a refrigerator in the corner at all.
And it's how we're paying ourselves.
That's right. Maybe that's why we were a little late tonight. We had a... No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. That's the problem. We didn't. Okay, so before I get too far, I've got the sun, Mount Fuji. This is already pretty dry, but I want to reflect this down in the water. And I can see, it's funny looking now on the original, I can see that this isn't like perfectly lined up, but I never noticed it till right now. So hopefully that's okay. Hopefully you guys didn't notice it either. Basically, I want to drop down below.
Well, now that you pointed it out,
Now I pointed it out. It's towards the bottom of the wood because we have to do a big like shadow of this mountain too. So just sort of eyeball it down, maybe make a dot. And I'm not going to reflect a perfect circle. I'm just going to scribble back and forth, maybe get a little wider in the middle. And then narrower down here. So it does kind of make a circular scribble.
Yeah, and since this isn't like a lot of times when we see lights being reflected in the water, it almost creates like a stripe coming through the water. But because it's the sun, we're going to see more of the actual spherical shape while it's up in the sky like that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I was asking.
Yeah. You were asking, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that looks pretty good. And now our job will be to reflect the mountain into the water. And I'm not asking for, oh, yeah, you have to exactly reflect. It has to be exactly the same length as here. No, we don't have to do that. We don't want to stress out about that. There's been enough stress going on. I Stop correcting me. I'm going to paint on you. Oh, I accidentally did. Sorry.
That's my new shirt. My goodness. Keep yourself under control there, lady.
Let's take the biggest brush. Go ahead and dip it in water, and let's refresh our watered down black and blue mix. I might have to mix a tiny bit more. You don't want a ton of paint on your brush, though, because this is a subtle, we want sort of a sheer look. Like on the original here, you can see how see-through it is. Compared to this one, it's quite a bit more transparent. So for me, that means less paint on the brush, maybe a tiny more water mixed in with the paint. So I'll dip my big brush in the paint, and then I'm going to blot it a lot on the paper towel. So when I start painting on here, even though it looks like my brush has no paint on it at all, there's paint coming off of it. I'm going to hold my brush this way, use the skinny edge. Maybe you have a round brush, either one works. I don't get too hung up on the brushes. I have my favorites for sure, but I mean, it's not so much the brush, it's how you use the brush for the most part, at least in my opinion. I grew up not having a ton of money, and I've got a dent in the board, and I never really could afford the expensive brushes that a lot of my college peers had. So I had to make do with like really old ones.
I kind of think that's overrated anyway. Like, I think sometimes, like, if you're doing watercolor, you might want to invest into, you know, one or two nice sable brushes that are pretty expensive. But when you're doing acrylics and oils,
yeah,
it's really not all that
Paul
necessary.
likes really beat up brushes.
I do. I'm actually...
And they have their place, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want to paint?
I mean, yeah, I'm good. I feel like I'm going to have to guard all the equipment from the dog. She keeps wandering through, and she's like a bull in a china shop.
She can't hear, and she's losing her sight because she's 14.
And she's built like a tank, so when she encounters
like
something,
a small tank.
She kind of just tends to walk through it.
So yeah, so you can see here, I'm just sort of vaguely suggesting the shape of the mountain without having to completely replicate exactly the mountain. And sometimes I've got some paint smearing out on the edges here. You can take a little water and smooth that out if needed, but we're going to come back later and add some white, be quiet. Yeah. We're going to add some white water lines in here anyways, so you can go ahead and talk now, Paul.
Well, I was just going to say what's really cool is the way you've thinned that paint down. It's actually working like a stain, and it's helping pull the grain out, and it actually looks like ripples in the water already.
It does. You can kind of see it right through here. That's one of the things I really love about these wood boards, that having that gentle grain, and then it pops out when you stain it. That's exactly how I want you to treat this watered down paint, is like a stain. It works much better that way. So we're on track. We're doing good. We're going to put some highlights on the mountains now. What we're going to do is we're not painting the white snow yet. We're painting, actually on the instructions I called it a blue snow base. And it's just a little bit lighter blue than the mountain is. I'm going to have you grab a pair of scissors.
Why don't you just keep your hands up?
Quit being so rational, Paul.
I know, it's too much.
So we are going to mix 2 parts cobalt blue to 1 part white using your middle size brush. So for me, it's my little number 8 flat. 2 parts cobalt, 1 part white. Just sort of eyeball it. So I'll kind of like scrape aside some cobalt and then scrape in half as much white. I'll just build it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. I'll just hold it up. I could even tone that down with a tiny bit of black. So you're adding a little bit of a grayness to it. I think that will look better because this was looking really, really, really vivid blue against this dark slate gray mountain. So here I did add a tiny bit of black to it just to mute it down. A little decision on the fly. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut this paper pulpit under my painting. I keep brushing up against it. Sorry for the noise. Maybe I'll just tear it. Oh, it feels good. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to brush down this side. From the top of the mountain, brush downward. Just let your brush kind of run out of paint and then come up again. Brush down some more. I like to use the side of the brush, the skinny side of it. And if you just let your brush run out of paint, what happens is you get these little spots where the paint is thinner and then spots where the paint is a little more opaque. So you're naturally putting in like little crevices and things that mountains have, little cliffs and rocks and whatnot.
Did you like repoint this light?
No, but the dog went under and moved some stuff around. Is it Friday the 13th?
Man, it feels like it.
I like it already. Like, it looks more three-dimensional already, and we haven't even put the white snow on. I think you're gonna have to go play with Suki. She needs some attention.
I'm giving her attention. Come here. Just relax.
That looks really nice, and it's not overly vivid, but you can really see it. One of the things that I really liked about this one is I took that blue and I kind of scraped parts way down in here. So it's like the sun is glinting against maybe spots that are bumped up, and then the darker areas would be like recessed valleys and whatnot. So yeah, I'll just kind of scrape down there. Let the brush run out of paint as you do that. Whoa, I hit it heavy there, that's all right.
I don't know what she's doing.
So think about the sun here, and maybe I keep calling it the moon. If I do, I apologize.
The celestial object in the sky.
The celestial object in the sky. But think about it, it's the light source, so this area under here, yes, would be grabbing some light. And so it's going to be a little more detailed than over here would be.
I'm gonna go see if she needs water.
Okay. So far, so good. And now we're just about ready to add the white snow. But what we want to do is reflect a little bit of this color into the water. We want to have our brush strokes be horizontal because water sits flat. And not a lot of paint on the brush. So dip it in your paint, wipe it on your towel, and then just come under here and you're just going to go back and forth. Remember, water sits flat and horizontal. And we're just looking to get the color on here. Like, hey, yes, we remembered. We reflected this color into the water. All right. There's one part on mine, looking at it now, that I don't love, and it's, I can really see it on the monitor up ahead here, and it's this area. It looks like it's too much of a triangular shape that's just popping out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and just scrape in a little of that lighter blue. There, that looks better. And now we're going to put some white snow. So whenever I see paintings of Mount Fuji or pictures of Mount Fuji, it always has that bit of snow that comes about a third of the way down the mountain. So you can see it here. It is primarily on the left side of the mountain because of the sun. And you can do the same thing we were doing with this. We're going to use this brush, your middle brush, and just drag it down, leaving some areas where your brush has run out of paint. So that's how you get this, it's almost like a stripy look, like an unintended stripy look. That gives you the impression of, what would you call those, valleys, craters?
Yeah.
All of the above.
I don't know about craters, but crevasses.
Yeah, crevasses.
Crevasse.
Okay. So white paint on the brush. And let's go ahead and start at the top. I'm going to start on this, just the whole left edge of the mountain. And just drag down. I never use a ton of paint on the brush. And I've probably said this every time I teach. But I want to add gradually when I'm doing this. It's real easy to go way too much right at first. So now this next one, I'll just move over a little bit, drag it down, maybe occasionally bump up just to make it so it's not exactly like this first one.
One of the hard things when we're working on a mountain like this is I've noticed in the studio is a lot of people end up really stripey.
Yeah.
And so we gotta remember to kind of come back in and do some fill areas and things like that.
Oh, it looks really good up there. Maybe something is gonna go good tonight. It'll be my painting.
Everything goes good as long as we keep the right attitude about it, right?
All right. So you can do some rogue ones down in here, like maybe the sun is highlighting a little area that popped up. It bumps up more than the others. And we don't want to ignore this side completely, so I do just put a few little hints or suggestions of snow on this other side. You can use your finger and kind of smudge it out. But I don't want it to be as pronounced as this one, because this one is getting lit by the sun. You can go back and add a little more thick paint once you have your snow in a way that you like. Hopefully you'll get to that point that you like it. Actually, that's probably one of the better mountains I've painted.
I agree. But you always do good.
I'm not that, like, mountains are not my forte. Painting, like, animals, like owls and things like that. That's me. Paul is definitely the mountain man.
I've got the beard to prove it.
You do.
And the time spent on the mountain.
Yeah. So I think this is the area down in here where that forest is that they call the Sea of Trees. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, is it that forest?
I don't know how to say it. I
Don't try, you'll butcher it.
I will.
You'll just
I
butcher
used to know how to say it. But Greta and I just watched that movie on Netflix about that forest. It's good for cheap entertainment, I'll say that.
The movie?
Yeah.
Or the forest?
Oh, you didn't watch it, did you?
No.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get some white snow reflected here, because we don't want to forget about that, like I almost did. Very little paint on the brush. Dip it in the white, blot it off on the towel, and again, you're going to, we're not looking for shape so much. The water's kind of, the ripples in the water and all that, they're not going to make you have a perfect shape anyways. So let's just get the color on there. Little at a time. Sometimes you'll see... Oh, are you wanting to play guitar?
I don't know. I was thinking about it.
It might be distracting.
It might be.
Sometimes you'll see perfect mirror reflections, but that's not the case here.
All that is from the stillness of the water.
Yeah, well, maybe this water is
It's got a little bit of a wind today, so we've got some ripples going on.
Hey, why don't you Google what this body of water is called?
All right.
That'll give you something to do.
I am the co-pilot.
And if you're watching along with us, feel free to pop on and say hello. Or you can be shy. It's all right. I see there's a few of you watching, and that's great. And then if you don't feel like I'm all alone with just Paul.
Wow.
Okay, so we've got this far. That's great. We're probably about halfway done with the painting, I would say. Maybe. Trees take a little bit longer. They're just a little more detailed. And then, obviously, I had to throw that koi in there, as that was a last-minute choice. But
right,
I did it.
I'm going to try to pronounce this. Ready?
Okay.
Kawagujiko.
That sounds about right.
Kawaguchiko. That's it.
Okay, so is
Kawaguchiko.
it a lake?
Yes.
Nice. Very cool.
Although, yes, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually 5 lakes around Mount Fuji.
Wow. So this could be one of those 5.
Yeah, Saiko.
You don't have to say them all. It's okay.
Yama.
No, it's okay. You don't have to say it.
Sojiko.
Stop. Okay.
And Motosuko.
Let's go ahead and move on.
Here comes
Same
our Motosuko.
brush.
Hello.
Same brush. Wash it off and dry it off. We are going to create some landforms at the base of the mountain, and that is the sea of trees I was telling you about right through here. This one I did kind of a curvy sort of brush stroke. I wanted it to look like there were deciduous trees that were really like curvy on the top, so lots of roundness. And over here I had more spiky like fir tree types. Just I figured doing 2 different types would be kind of fun and make the painting look interesting. You can see, maybe you can't see, later on, here you can see it. We put silver on top there. I love using the metallics. It just looks really cool. But for the color that we start with, we're going to mix black and cobalt blue, just like we did before, only half and half. 1 part black, 1 part cobalt blue, and no water mixed in it. So we want a pretty opaque color. So I pulled a little black paint aside, and now I'm going to mix about equal parts of cobalt, maybe a tiny bit more. It makes a really deep charcoal. It's like off black. It's darker than charcoal. It's off black. Now you could, if you want to make it more on the bluer side, like this is going to show up. Let me do a little dot. You can see that's going to show up. Let's see what it would look like if I mixed a little more blue, a bluer version of this. It should show up as well. Yeah. I do like the bluer version. I think that'll look really nice with the silver on top. And then our trees are just really, really dark, the trunks. So I do like having a tiny bit more blue in there, but it's your choice. Obviously, they're not so different from each other. On the monitor, they look exactly the same. But in person, I can tell that this one on the right has quite a bit more blue on it. But here's what we are going to do with this color.
Here's an interesting fact about Mount Fuji.
Okay.
It's actually made up of 4 volcanoes.
Wow.
How's
that possible?
Well, it looks like 3 of them kind of formed a long time ago, kind of around the base, and then one big one kind of formed in the middle later and kind of absorbed the other 3. It's kind of
nice.
Yeah, wow.
It absorbed them, and the others were parasites.
I don't think that's the way that would work.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll come above this line right here, about a brush width. I'm using that, and that's about a 1/4 inch. Boom, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be exact. Let's figure out how far we're gonna go across. So I went about 2/3 of the way across. So if you were to divide this line into 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, it's about 2/3 of the way across. So I'll just kind of eyeball it. 1, 2, right about there. I do like to give people marker points when we're painting, just because it makes it a little bit easier. And we're just sort of gonna curl. Think of it like you're drawing a cloud. See how I'm sort of doing these little curvy shapes, but gradually getting down lower to this point. So it's like I'm painting the top edge of a cloud. Very nice. Now my mountain has a really freaky mustache. And then I'm just going to trace straight across the water. This line doesn't stay. It gets kind of like some shading smudged in underneath it. So don't worry if it doesn't look so hot. Let's fill this in now. When I fill this in, I like to just use a little sort of tap, dab brush motion, because that's going to give you a little bit of texture. With acrylic paint, you have to do, you can buy medium, like gel medium, to mix in the paint to make it thicker. I've used it, and it is nice to use it as a thicker paint, but it still doesn't have the same feeling as like oil paint does, at least in my opinion. And but anyway, just using plain old acrylic without anything special mixed in it, I get texture by how I move my brush.
So, to answer your earlier question, Mount Fuji is only 56 miles from Tokyo.
Oh, sweet. We can do it. We can rent a car.
I don't fit in the cars. Well, I mean, the sumo people, wrestlers must drive in some kind of vehicle, so
Exactly.
I probably they gotta be some.
They're
kind of
about
car.
your size.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
That was mean.
Okay, so I've got my sea of trees here. So these are the deciduous trees, and if you do watch that movie, it's called The Forest. It was not filmed.
You really want
there
to talk about the forest
because you can't. I just watched it, so it's fresh in my head. I guess you can't film in there, and so it was filmed some other place, like not even in Japan. But the trees, I've seen pictures of inside that forest, and it looked just like it. The trees are just gorgeous, nice, tall, deciduous trees there, and that's kind of what I wanted here. And then they just gradually are going down shorter here. And now on this side, for those of you who have painted with us before, you'll see we do this a lot. It's a sound wave sort of thing. Oh, what am I going to use? I need a piece of paper. Here we go. So here's my water line. And I use the skinny edge of my brush. I glue it to the canvas or board. And I'm wiggling it up and down across as I make my way across. Suki. I don't worry about down here because I know I can come back and fill that in. Don't worry about getting down in the water. We have to reflect this down in the water anyways. But you can come back and clean up the tops if needed. But the trick here, glue your brush to your surface. I'm not lifting and tapping because if you lift and tap, you're going to get this sort of thing or even a zigzag sort of thing. We want that. What we're looking at is a dense forest from across the lake. And so we're not going to see individual trees. We're going to see individual fuzzy textural tops of the trees. So I'm going to start along here. I do have a lot of paint on my brush for this. Because I like to go a long way before I have to stop. I'm already running out of paint. The wood really loves this paint.
Soaks it up.
Yep.
Like we were soaking up the sun the last week and a half when we shouldn't have been, right? We weren't, but other people were.
I was in the house packing up.
Could not get her to leave the house.
I was packing up kits and filming videos, and I'm the type that I want to just put my head down and get it done. True. I hate leaving things hanging out there like, oh, your kit is shipped now, but I haven't filmed the video yet, so I like to get to that stuff as soon as I possibly can.
So that forest is primarily pine trees and maple trees.
Oh, cool. So these are the maple trees, and these are the pine trees.
Excellent.
So now I've got this area where I was, coming right up to the edge of the water line. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to fill that in.
Fill it.
And then I want to take... You can clean up the tops of these trees anytime, but while I've still got this wet paint color, I want to take and scratch it down into the water as a reflection or shadow of these. It is a reflection of these trees. So I just sort of try to mimic, like if I went up here, I want to come down here. It's just loose. I would say don't overthink it. It's easy to overthink it. And it looks kind of strange at first because we haven't added any water lines in our water yet. So it really looks a lot like we're just wrecking our painting right now. You're not, I promise. I'll show you on the original. I did that. And then we add this water line and these little water current lines and the silver highlights on the top, and it all comes together.
Hold on.
I promise.
We've got a situation.
The dog is coming through to...
Come here. Come on. Let's go.
She wants to knock the camera equipment down. I think her tail just hooked on a wire.
No, it was her foot.
Okay.
Come on, let's go.
Maybe you should close the door. All right. So we need to put a shadow from the maple trees into the water too. And that's going to be not like this one. It'll be a little more like this one. Same brush, same color. Let's see how I did that. Let me pull this up. I like to have you guys look before we start. And I can tell what I did was pretty much come down in the water as I'm sort of scribbling back and forth. You can see I'm trying to mimic this wedge shape. There we go. So I mimicked the wedge shape. Now I'm going to add a drop of water to the paint color I've been using. And just back and forth, fill that in. It can be a little bit lighter than these trees, or it can be the same darkness. I bet, so if these are maple trees, it probably ends up looking so pretty in the fall.
I bet.
I can tell you're going to Google it.
I'm totally going to Google it.
So I've got this little dent in the board. I don't know what happened there. This is wrong. You're not painting, Paul. Everybody's used to seeing our paintings together at the end when we post them on.
Well, it happens sometimes.
We have a page on Facebook. It's not the Go Box page. That is just kind of our advertisement page. But the Go Box Art Crate is the discussion page where people who are doing the paintings share them if they want, or offer feedback or questions or anything like that. You guys nailed the koi. I'm going to say last week when we did the koi and I saw people's pictures popping up. Oh, it's really pretty. We can't put that on the screen, can we?
I don't have a way to do that right now, no.
You can provide a link. How about that, Paul?
Just Google it, people. Just Google it.
So anyway, you guys totally nailed that
like
koi
candy
painting.
corn.
Don't you think? The koi, like, every single one of those that I saw, I was like, you can sell that. You can sell that. You can sell that. Very nicely done. Okay, I think we are at the point where we take a sip. Take a sip. That's what I'm going to do.
I've been taking sips the whole time.
Oh. Oh. Okay, I move right into doing trees. I will show you guys my tree tips. Cool. I'm just
Awkward silence.
I know, I'm just looking real quick. Okay, so I've seen lots of different photographs with red maple trees and cherry blossom trees with Mt Fuji in the background. I don't know if they're photoshopped or if they're true, legit photos or what, but who cares?
Let me Google that
We're
for you.
We're painting it as we want it to be. So if you decide you want red and orange maple trees, you want this to be a fall scene, that's what you can do. There's no reason why you have to be stuck with doing pink. That was just, when I designed this painting, apparently that was the feeling I was going for, probably because we are getting into spring. So we are going to draw the tree trunks with lots of curvy little branches. This particular one is kind of leaning towards the mountain. This one leans a little bit too. The reason I did that is so it creates this sort of intimate portrait of the mountain, and these frame the mountain in really nicely, and the sunlight there too, sunshine there too. So I'll teach you how to paint and draw deciduous tree trunks, but let's mix the color first.
There's actually a variety of cherry tree called the flowering Mt Fuji.
That's what we painted. So we've got this really runny metallic silver. I don't know why, but this paint from the manufacturer is always super runny. But, oh, that's really, save that, paint that. Do it as a class, Paul. He needs to provide links so you guys can see some of these pictures. I'll make him do it. You better save those links.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to scrape off black, and we're going to make gunmetal gray. It is very, very dark because we want the trees to be very dark, the trunks. But you'll see it's got a definite sparkle to it. It's got some glittery tones to it. Yeah, that looks good. It looks black. Here's my black. Here's my gunmetal. You can see they look very similar.
It's almost a Payne's gray. Almost.
Quit using those painter terms. So let's move this aside because, oh, actually, no, I want to draw on this. I'm going to draw a deciduous tree right here. So these are kind of going to lean. I like to use the thin edge of the brush when I'm drawing. So I'm going to come up let's see. Yeah, this isn't going to go off the canvas. I start with kind of a funky Y shape. That's the blueprint of the tree trunk. And I did purposely make that one lean inward. The base of the trunk is going to be a little bit wider where it grows out of the ground. No yawning. You can't yawn, Paul.
I had a hard day at work today.
And then I'm going to take my littlest brush for doing the individual branches. And I'm going to drop a water coming off there. I just taken a branch off of these original blueprint branches I put on. You want your branches to be long and wavy. I'll show you why. I've seen a lot of trees over the years that start with the Y shape. And you can see the Y branches are the exact same length. And then the branches are put on all the exact same length. And what you end up with is something that looks like deer antlers. That's fixable. If you end up with that, it's super common. All you do is just extend these branches out a little bit.
A little bit, a lot.
A little bit, a lot. And just sort of...
I also think adding a branch a little lower down on the trunk helps break up the...
like that.
Yeah, something. It helps break up the balance of it, the symmetry.
Yeah. So I like to, with cherry blossom trees, I like to add lots of branches because then I can add lots of blossoms. So I'm going to branch out here, branch out here, branch out here. You can branch off of that one. Don't press very hard. The lighter the pressure you use, the thinner your brush strokes will be. And I do recommend when you finally do switch to this little brush, I recommend you thin out your paint with a little water.
Just a little bit of water.
Just a little bit. You don't want it too watery. But yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we're just going to repeat it over here. Only on this one, we start off pretty easy because it just literally goes at an angle right off the top of the canvas.
The board.
Board.
Nah, they knew what we meant.
You knew what we meant. And then I'll show you from there what to do. So.
Excellent.
Let's do it. Take a sip of your liquid courage. And I'm going to start with my middle-sized brush. Because the trunks are quite a lot bigger and thicker than the branches. So the branches I'll do with the little brush. The trunks I'll do with this medium-sized brush. For me, it's my number 8. That's the one a lot of you guys get in your kits. So let's go ahead and start with this one on the left because for me, it seems easier because it goes right off the canvas board. What are you doing?
I'm going to put this in as a spacer so you don't draw.
You could just hold this up.
I could just...
Okay, so I'm going to start right about here.
Now you can let it...
Make a dot. Let's dot where it's going to go off the top of the board. So this is probably about 2 inches in from the left. Make a dot. Just some kind of marker point to go to so you don't get too nervous. And I'm going to sketch up. It can be a little wavy. In fact, it's better if it's a little bit wavy because it's a tree. It's not a telephone pole. And now I'm going to make another dot about 1/2 inch away up here because I want to parallel this original tree trunk. Notice I'm getting closer and closer to the original line as I go up top here so that it's thicker where it grows out of the ground, which is somewhere down here, and thinner at the top. And now, oh, that worked, Paul.
I know.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
That is why.
So I'll fill this in with that gunmetal charcoal gray. It's such a pretty color in the right light. There. Scary part to add because we're painting over the wood sky on something we've already worked on for I don't know how long, 45 minutes, an hour. We're going to add branches to that, but before we do that, let's draw the main tree trunk for this one here. This one's pretty easy. It just starts right at the top of this tree line. Goes off the side of the board. It also is just going to lean. This one doesn't go off the top of the board, so we just sort of have to draw it. There. About like that. And I'm going to go back and make it a little thicker, gradually thicker at the bottom here. All right, let's get rid of this brush.
Be gone with you.
Be gone with you. Actually, I lied. Let's do these very, very, very subtle reflections of just the tree trunk. I kept it simple. I did not want to do this, but it felt out of place if I didn't. So I did reflect loosely just the tree trunks. So while we're in that zone, in that mode, let's take this same brush, wash it off though. And here is the trick. So I've got my charcoal gray here that I just painted the tree trunks with. Let's put a dot of water next to it. And your water's kind of grayish because that just happens at this point. Let's mix a little paint pigment into that. So it's real watery. See if I brush it, it looks just like a watercolor. It's gonna start beading up and separating on my wax paper palette. So I want to dab my brush several times on my paper towel before I touch the board with it. Dab, 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 dab on each side. And then under, ooh, I got something to clean up. I'll clean up that in a minute. So then under here, I'm just kind of, see how light that is? I'm just going left to right, like so. That's the way you can say, ha ha, I did it. I added the shadow, but it wasn't hard. We don't want to make it overcomplicated. And on this side too, it's gonna come down and just kind of loosely try to mimic the curvature. Don't worry if it's not exact. Keep that paint real light. Probably no one will ever even notice it. There. That wasn't so bad. Make sure you take a sip. Not off your paint water. You better pour me some more before you drink all that.
I'm going to go get another beverage so you can continue with the desolation of this one.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to fix up this area where I just kind of have this funky floating trunk. All right. So we have our tree trunks. 2 of them. One goes off the top. One goes partway there. They're reflected down into the water just like everything else is. And now it's time to add lots and lots of branches. Let me show you the originals just as a guide. I have one that comes off this side and then it gets another off of it. I have a lot on this side. They curve over the sun. I think that's kind of fun. It just kind of frames it in. And then this one, we also have some that curve this way and a few that curve that way. Let's do it. Littlest brush. Go ahead and mix a drop of water with your paint just for the fluidity. It's going to make it so much easier for you when painting branches. You don't want it so thin that it's just going to drip down off the wood, but about the consistency of heavy cream. That's my favorite consistency for doing this sort of thing. Keep your pressure really light. That's going to give you nice thin brush strokes. You can always make it thicker by pressing harder if you need to go back over. This one here, it's kind of a heavier branch, so you can press a little harder. It's just going to come up and off the top. It's just going to work its way there. Yours might look like mine, or it might go a different direction. We're all building different trees here. And then usually I'll branch off of that one. And if you want more cherry blossoms on this side, you could add more branches. If you're starting to get a funky little, where your water's sort of growing into the wood grain, mix a little more paint back into it. You can usually fix it by coming back over it with some less watered down paint. That is one of the challenges with working with wood. Sometimes we want that, sometimes we don't. Now I'm going to make a branch that goes off the top here. They can be a little thicker where they grow out of the main trunk, because that's how they would be naturally. And then a little thinner on the ends. Best way to do that is to start with a little heavier pressure and then gradually lift the pressure as you get up and out. And now we'll go this way towards the sun, curving over a bit. This is where it's going to start looking like a Halloween painting, which I'd be game to do a Halloween painting right now.
Let's do it.
I think we should just throw a wrench in the gears.
Christmas paintings are always fun.
Christmas paintings are fun. I'd bring that gnome painting back.
Yeah.
There, this will go off the canvas.
You know what holiday really doesn't represent well in paintings? Easter.
Yeah, I mean, just spring scenes you can do.
Oh, yeah,
it,
for sure.
But, like, yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But, you know, flower blossom paintings.
You started to say chicks.
I did not. I was saying cherry blossom.
Okay.
Chicks.
We could do
Let's
a
paint
peep.
some chicks.
Let's paint some peeps.
Okay, so I'm going to branch off of this.
Yo, where my peeps
light
at?
pressure. Actually, a painting of a row of peeps done like Andy Warhol style would be
that would
really
actually be
funny.
kind of funny. You mean like one each in each square, not in a row?
Yeah, and you could do them in the bright colors like the Campbell soup.
Or like peeps.
Yeah. True. If you want to be that way.
I could be.
Okay, so I'm going to add a little branch down here and branch off of it. And you can literally keep adding and adding, and you can add off of any of these. Maybe it's trying to reach this other tree. Like, there's my lady.
It's a lady. A man.
Oh, Paul.
What? What I do now?
All right, so I'm just kind of cleaning up. That's about all I'm going to add to this tree. I mean, I could keep going. I could add some over here. Okay, I'll keep going. Just a little. Because then I could add more flower blossoms. But that's about it. And then I'll move on to this other tree. Before I do that, I'm going to drink of my cider. Okay. So you might have to refresh your paint with a little drop of water. And this one, we're going to build from it. So a lot of us, we probably ended up with kind of a blunt-ended trunk here. That can be fixed with a little dab of cherry blossoms. Or you could extend it out just a little bit with light pressure in this little brush. Make it pointy on the ends. And then I'm going to branch off of this way so I get that. Remember I told you about the Y shape? This one could go up higher. It could go off the top of the board. Why not? And then I'm going to add more. Every time you do this, light pressure. I'm just going to remind you. Every time I say light pressure, you should take like a drink. We could turn this into a drinking game.
Okay, let's do it. Can you say what kind of pressure are we supposed to use, Jenny?
Light pressure. Glug, glug, glug.
Did you say heavy pressure?
Light pressure.
Okay.
It's funny watching the videos that we've made a lot this week, way more than usual, because we're really forced to. It's like once the studio had to be closed by governor's orders because we can't have a place for people to gather, we were just like SOS, and so we started putting out. We're like, okay, we can sell this kit, that kit, this kit, that kit. Popular paintings in the studio, there'll be a kit, and it meant a lot of filming, and so a lot of like editing and watching, and I notice there's words I say constantly.
So what are you talking about?
I say so all the time.
So you're saying you say so a lot?
So next and so
drink?
That's gonna be our drinking game. If I say so, you guys gotta drink.
Just don't take shots, because you won't last very long.
Yeah, you won't last very long.
And if you're just having like a non-alcoholic beverage, you'll have a much easier time at it.
I think a good idea next will be to put the silver highlights down here and then the silver highlights on the tree trunks because that'll allow this really dark stuff to dry before we hit it up with pink. And I want to use my middle-sized brush. Clean it, dry it. I feel like this painting's just cruising along.
It is. Well, let's see. How long are we?
It had a sluggish start and it just cruised along.
The whole thing just felt awkward to begin with. We're a little over an hour.
Yeah, at 7:30, Greta was French braiding my hair. And I was like, Paul, can you post on there that we're going to be 5 minutes late? I was having a bad hair day. Just French braid it.
Well, and then I realized that I had to switch cameras really quick.
Yeah, we were a hot mess.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got the silver, and I want to just brush it off on my palette. Brush it off the brush on your palette so you have a really thin little glossy glaze of silver on your brush.
Sounds good.
And I'm going to come along, and that's too much paint on my brush. I'm going to dab it on my paper towel.
Actually, it barely shows up in the monitor.
Oh, funny. Yeah, you're right.
But it's just the way the light reflects because it's a metallic paint. So.
Well, maybe I should add a little more then.
Well, I don't know.
So this is the top edge of the trees. Think of this. This is our light bulb. And the light is going to cast on the top edge of this maple forest here.
I wonder if sometimes people pop in and all they see is the palette. You know, like when you're mixing a color, because I just saw somebody was on and...
Then they're gone.
And then they're gone, and they're like, hey,
boring, it's just a paint palette.
What a terrible painting. Well, this doesn't look like Mt Fuji at all.
So one of the things I noticed that I have done before and other students have done before, let me tilt this a little bit so you can really get the pop of the highlight.
Wow, there it is.
It's super easy to do just a line across the top of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot, and what you want to do is think about it this way. There's going to be some trees down here that will bump out. Not going to put a lot of pressure on the brush here, but you can kind of fix up your highlights that way so you're not ending up with one solid line.
I also think it's really easy
Isn't it amazing?
to
the difference
overuse that
disappears,
silver too.
and there it is. It disappears, and there it is. Okay. Let's brush a little bit down here, just like we've been doing with the mountain and everything. Just kind of wiggle your brush back and forth just to get the color on there. Not really worried about shape or form so much here. Just color. These trees are a little easier. Same amount of paint on the brush, and I'm just going to sort of brush on the top edge of these. Again, here's your light bulb shining down on these. Sort of dabbing the brush on here. If you need to use your small brush to do that, feel free. Make sure you get a little tint of color in the water. Just touch the brush to it, the tips of these trees that are reflected in the water. I'll tilt this again, you can kind of see.
Wow.
It's almost too much.
It can be really easy. That's what I was
It can be
to say.
super easy to have too much, and if you fall into that trap and you don't like it, it's so easy to just, I could go back, clean my brush off, and I could take the blue and black mix and just pop it on here once in a while.
You're about to lose a big drip.
Oh, on the brush?
Yep.
And make it more subtle just by painting over the top. It works like a glaze, and then suddenly it's not so in your face. You could do that over here too, if needed. Maybe you really like the bright silver. It is kind of a fun add-on.
Yeah, in fact, I was actually just thinking that if somebody could actually be, normally I'm against being really heavy with those metallic colors, but somebody could actually be very heavy with that on those 2 rows of trees, and it would actually be really interesting looking. Mm-hmm. Especially since they're painting on a wooden board. It's kind of like the rules of how we paint on canvas are completely out the window.
Yeah. And the thing, too, with painting, and Bob Ross always says this, too, it's your world. You design it however you want. Your world. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Okay, I'm going to take my little brush now, and our goal here now is to highlight just along the tree trunks. If you have any bigger branches, you could put some silver highlights on those too. Littlest brush, we're going to use silver. Again, think of this as your light bulb. It is going to shine, it's going to light up the right side of this tree and the left side of this tree because those are the parts that are facing the light bulb. Little brush silver paint. Now you can be kind of scratchy with your brush strokes here because this is a tree and tree bark is kind of rough. And the sun's just going to grab those pieces that are sticking up a little bit on the rough tree bark. I don't do too much on the branches because they're super thin anyways. If you have a thicker one, this works. This is a great way to thin it out, actually. Give the impression of it.
This is where I'd be really cautious about using too much of the silver personally. Because it can...
Well, we're not listening to you.
That was rude. What did I do?
Just kidding. We're using a lot of silver here.
Maybe you'll think about it
go
next
ahead.
time. And
okay,
make sure,
tell me why you wouldn't
think about it next time and make sure I actually have a board to paint on.
Hey, I was looking forward to you painting on that heart-shaped board.
I didn't want to paint on the heart-shaped board.
Why not?
I just wasn't feeling it.
Okay. Again, with the trees, you can soften that silver up if needed with dark. So what were you saying? You're saying it's easy to get too much silver?
Yeah, on this type of on the branches, I think it can really over-dominate in a very stripy way, which feels very unnatural.
True. So if you have stripes and it feels unnatural, take your littlest brush with the charcoal mixture and just glaze over some of the silver that you want to diminish. Okay, it is time to cherry blossom these, and then we'll put some blossom reflections in the water, real subtle. We'll put some flyaways in the sky if you want, that's optional. And we will, again optional, we'll paint our funky little koi there. It's just a suggestion of a koi, so it's, for those of you who painted the koi last week, it's not even remotely as detailed, not even close. It's kind of like a, well, it's just really looks like a slug with fins.
Koi lovers the world around are so offended by you right now.
They're probably offended by my painting.
No.
That original.
No.
For all of these blossoms, one thing I want to point out is I cluster them together in areas, because if you look at fruit blossom trees or flowering fruit trees.
Flowering flutes, that's a new one.
They grow in lots of clusters, and we did paint branches here, but we didn't paint all the individual twigs that would hold all of these on. And so it gets real common for people to like, oh, I can only attach it to a branch, I can only follow the branch, when really you should be clustering it around like it's a big cloud of...
Actually, cloud is the perfect word.
Cloud of blossoms that is congregated around the branch, because there's lots and lots of little twigs and things that we can't see. And if we wanted to make it like a 6-hour painting, we could paint them all. But we're just going to cloud them around the edges here. That sounds weird to say it that way, but I guess it makes sense. Wash off your middle-sized brush. And if you want to do the red and orange and maple tree, like fall colors, you totally can. So mix red and orange together. You'll get red and yellow together will give you sort of an orange. And then you'll have 3 colors to work with on the trees. So if you feel like making a fall scene, that's the only difference. You're just going to do red and orange and yellow blossoms, which are actually leaves, instead of the pink. For those of us doing pink, I first make a medium pink that looks a lot like a raspberry smoothie. So I do white and then about the same amount of red. So yeah, it looks just like it looks if you were to blend like plain yogurt together with raspberries, it makes this color. And then I'm going to scrape a little of that aside, and I'm going to mix more white with it till I get a pastel or baby pink. I think mine's pulling a little silver in there. So we'll use these 2 colors, and then we're also when we're done with using these 2 colors, we're going to put a little bit of white blossoms on there that will act as like the highlight from the sun. All right, so I usually like to start with this lighter pink because I want it to mostly be lighter pink.
Oh, we got a comment on Facebook that somebody is painting along with us, but they didn't have a board, so they're painting on a rock.
I love it. Oh, please do that. Please post it if you feel comfortable with that. I think that's amazing. So that was on YouTube, you mean? Not Facebook?
No, it was
Facebook?
on that new art group that we...
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to... I can't wait to see that if they want to post it. So I'm going to think of these like little cloud shapes. And this is where if you have a branch that's ugly that you didn't really like, you can cover it. This works like a painter's Band-Aid.
I think it's really important to... I'm going to just interject my 37 cents right now.
37 cents?
I don't know why.
With you it is. It's more like 3,700 cents.
I'm doing pretty good tonight. Doing pretty good. I think it's really important to detach from the branches and really almost like cut across them.
Yeah.
And
this
I know
looks
that's
really light pink on the monitor.
I know that's really difficult for people to do because here's our structure. We got to put the
Here, I'll do that right here.
Yeah, do it.
There was nothing to connect this to. It's just a little floating cherry blossom cloud.
It really only looks... We should actually buy a new monitor.
Yeah, so I want to show you now, like normally I would go onto this one and do all the light pink on this one, but I want to show you how I'll switch to the darker pink now. And I don't think it matters if you do dark pink first and then light pink. It's your own preference, but remember the raspberry smoothie color we mixed. So I'll tuck that in there, and the wet on wet paint mixes together nicely so that you end up with two shades.
You know, a lot of cherry trees, they're almost white. They're so light pink too. So
yeah.
There's nothing
There's one
wrong.
down the street I saw today that's like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I do like the two-tone thing going on there. Now I'm going to bump over to this guy. And you know what? I'll start with the dark pink on this one. You can see how that looks. So I'm starting with raspberry smoothie. Again, floating cherry blossoms around the branches, not making like, here's what you don't want. You don't want it to look like this, like it's a fuzzy pink caterpillar. I've seen so many of those over the years. And for the right painting, it actually looks really cool. But this painting, we want to think of this like, there's clusters. They're attached to little twigs we can't see. And then you will have some in here. Oh, I just accidentally put one, so I guess I'm committed. You'll have some little clusters back in here that are attached to little twigs that we can't see.
It is really coming along.
Yeah, where are we at time-wise?
Well, we are at 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now, keep in mind, a good solid 10 minutes of that was calamity and...
Major calamity.
embarrassment.
We can't have them all right. We can't nail all the videos.
You know, I found yesterday, I filmed the water lilies painting, and I found that it actually went pretty fast. I think the full total video ended up being about 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Which is unusual for when I teach.
It's very unusual for when you teach. You like to talk.
It's true.
So I started this one with the raspberry smoothie, which is your darker pink.
You know, I actually really
now
like...
I'll switch to the lighter pink. Go
since
ahead.
you pointed
Paul.
out
Go
that
ahead.
I like to talk. I actually would be cautious of using too much of that lighter pink on this one because I really like how it contrasts with the darker one in the foreground rather than being the same color.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm looking up at the monitor and it looks more...
That monitor lies.
Well, I'm looking at the YouTube stream too, which is better picture.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, to me it's a little bit more interesting to have a little bit more.
We have this big old flat screen TV on our wall that, I don't know, how old is that thing?
It's been up there for a long time.
And the color on it is not true, and that's what we use as our reference, so it's kind of frustrating to look up there and be like, really? That's the color it looks like?
I was at Walmart today and they had 4K ones the same size for about $340.
Come on, people, let's sell some Go Box kits.
We need you to buy 10 more kits so we can go get a new TV for our wall. Come on, people. We're up to 4.
You can start a telethon, Paul.
That's right.
The next person who dials gets a free red snapper.
Let's go for 20 kits and we can have a matching one down below for editing. It would be awesome.
All right, so I have these 2 trees were done just completely opposite. This one I started with the light and then moved into the dark. This one I started with the dark and moved into the light. Either way works, and it kind of, you get to the same point. I do, before I make flyaways and that sort of thing, I do want to get this part out of the way, and that's just smudging a really watered down light pink down in here, just so that we can know that, yes, this is casting a reflection down in the water. I want you to water it down, though, because we want it to be subtle, and it's going to be your lighter pink. So here's what I'll do again. I'm going to dip make sure your middle brush is clean. Gonna dip it in the water, and then I'll put a little bead of water down here, and your water's kind of grayish, no biggie. Then I'm gonna mix some pink with it. So I get a watercolor, light pink watercolor. No worries if it's a little muted from the paint water, that's not gonna cause any problem here. And then I'll dab my brush on the towel once or twice before I go in here, but I'm just going to, I feel like I could add a little darker pink to that. Just going to scribble it around. Like this is our upside down tree. I'm keeping my brush strokes short and choppy, but pretty horizontal, just to give the impression of the flatness of the water. Don't worry too much about where you place this. Just get the color on there. As simple as that. It was super easy and not something that you have to over detail. In fact, our over detailing should be just about done. We'll add the koi, but that's fairly simple. All right, so let's go ahead now and, hey, I said so, I gotta take a drink. I should say it a bunch of times. Okay, let's go ahead and make white highlights on, so think about this, your light bulb. It's gonna cast white on the bottom edge of these that are facing towards the sun. I'm gonna use my same brush, my middle size that I was using. Just a little white. In fact, dip your brush in it and then swipe it on your palette several times or on your towel. And go ahead and just get the underside or the edge of some of these. It really makes it look like the sun is glinting off of these flowers. You can even get some that are over here. And then these guys, even if it's still wet, like mine are still wet, it's still gonna show up on there. It might be a little more subtle, but maybe we want that. I'll tilt this a little bit. Get some here and some here, maybe some here. Think about all these spots that the sun is going to glint off of. Maybe some way over here. There. That feels pretty good to me. For the flyaways, I actually have 2 plum trees in my backyard, one at each corner. These are like them. And in February, the pink blossoms come out, and then it starts, like even now they're snowing. You look in the backyard, you're like, is it snowing? Right now, anything is possible. But it's the little individual petals from the flowers falling off. And occasionally you'll get a whole flower that falls off. It was funny the other day, my dog came in with one stuck to his nose. It was actually really adorable.
Yeah, that was cute.
Now, I think the easiest way to do these tiny little petals, because if you think about it, in size relation to the tree trunks, they're going to be tiny. The easiest way to do that is to use your littlest brush, but try the handle end. Just dip it. I'm going to use the light pink. Dip it in the light pink and, oops, okay, that didn't work. I need a little more paint mixed. Just go ahead and dot it on.
This might not work as quite as well on the wood.
Well, no, I've done it before.
Okay, I'm just saying.
You could, I think this one has a little buildup of paint on the handle. But you could also use the brush end. That's going to probably work a little better for me. And just do a little dot.
I think it works better on the canvas with the other end because the canvas gives a little bit.
Mm-hmm. These can be all over. The key is don't make them into a pattern. So don't do it each one is an inch apart. Occasionally go through and make some that are uncomfortably close. They are not social distancing themselves. And then do make some that land on the water. They look really good that way. And you can do some in the light pink, some in the dark pink. If you're going to do this. Over the mountain, over the trees, way over here. You can honestly just put them everywhere and you can keep going. And there. I think I've got a decent amount. All right, we're going to use horizontal brush strokes and a skinny brush. And we're going to paint the white water current lines into the water. And that is shown here. We give this nice light line along the back edge. That is very Bob Ross. I learned that from watching his show. He does that every time an area where he has the water breaking against the land, he has this light line. And you'll see it just suddenly becomes water. It's pretty amazing. Brush-wise, a skinny edge is what you want. So you could use your littlest one if you have a nice pointy small brush. I tend to like to use the flat skinny edge of this middle-sized brush. So you can see it's very thin. And I can just kind of razor a line along there. Now we want to use a slightly watered down white. I don't want a pure opaque white. And our water is tinted already. That's totally fine. In fact, it'll probably be a good thing. Let's go ahead and set a bead of water on your palette somewhere. Pick up a little white and mix it with. So you have a little white watercolor. Maybe I'll mix a little more white with that. You'll know right away when you start painting on the board if you need more white mixed in. But every time that we mix a color, your brush gets pretty darn loaded up with paint, and we don't want a ton of paint on the brush for this part. We want it to be just a small amount of paint. So I'm going to dab my brush on my paper towel a couple times on each side. And then I'm going to very carefully go right in between. Let's do this area first. I think it'll be easier than finding the edge here. I can kind of see where the water line that I drew in originally was. It's basically halfway between here and here. So just trace along here. Don't worry about it being perfectly straight. It never is going to be unless you use a ruler. And even then it's questionable. But, you know, occasionally there's rocks and logs and things under the water. And the water isn't perfectly straight. It might have a little disturbance to it. There. Ah, I love it. That looks, suddenly it's water. But it needs more. And hopefully it's not angling down too much. Usually that's the case with me. It's like angling down on one side. Maybe it's going down to a waterfall. That still wouldn't make sense, but I do bring in more of these shorter little glassy lines through the dark reflections. They look really good. And then as you get down in here, you can even make it have a little more water current just by sort of squiggling your brush around a bit. Down in here, because we had it watered down, it might not show up as much. So feel free to mix a little more white paint pigment with your watery mix. And use a little lighter blend down in here. A little more opaque. This is kind of like what we did on the koi painting last week where we added the water lines. I will put the koi painting up here in a second because I feel like we need to reference it before we start drawing that little version of the koi, which goes much quicker. I'm just using kind of shaky brush strokes, sort of light pressure on the brush, and I'm not trying to commit to any kind of perfect straight line because it's water. It's going to have some little bits of current and things like that that show up. There. Okay, it doesn't show up like the silver. You can always add more if you feel like it's not quite enough. You want to hit it up with a couple little spots of a whiter blend. There, I've got almost little ripples, I guess.
It's like you just put the surface on the water.
I put the surface on the water. Grab the koi.
Oof.
Anyway, noisy chair.
Maybe we should get some of those fancy chairs that I see a lot of the podcasters using that look like race car seats on wheels.
We do need something on the bottom of these because they are the noisiest chairs and it always sounds like you just...
They're not very comfortable either.
No. Here's the koi we did last week. And these are the white ripples I was talking about. And so our... Oh, I said it. Drink time. This little koi is a tiny little version of it. The sloppy version.
It'd be kind of cool if people had time when they got all done, as if they did a second one that was kind of like yin-yang.
I don't know about that, Paul.
I'm not saying you do it. I'm saying people could do it on their own.
Now you can decide where the koi goes. On this original, I have it just to the right of the sun reflection, kind of in line with, close to the line, in line with the mountain. But maybe for you it makes more sense to have it over here. I'll go ahead and keep it like I did originally. And it is literally the half circle that the koi makes is about the same size as the sun. And I didn't draw it out very good when I first did it, but I'll show you guys how to draw it out properly. So we're going to use this little brush, white paint. Let's go ahead and if I were to draw a koi, I would draw a small circle about the diameter of a pencil eraser. That is going to be the head. It will become the head, but at first it's going to look like a little bubble. And then I'm going to curve around and like you're starting to do a half circle. And then this side too, but we want this to come close to that line so it makes a point. So it's kind of like, here, I'll fill it in now. There. Let's see. I have no way to zoom in on that. Everything's in reverse. There we go. So you have this little finless koi. I just started with the circle head and then curved out from that. And you can make it longer, the body, if you want. They do have nice, long, graceful bodies. And for the tail, that's what I'll do next. It's just going to kind of flick outward like so. Like a little feathery area. And then the fins are going to flick this way if you remember doing that last week. Very light pressure with the brush. And in fact, the nose of the fish could come to a small point. Okay, Paul, what are the fin names again? What are these ones? Dorsal?
Which ones?
these little side ones?
No, those are the pectoral fins. On the
Pectoral
side.
fins. That makes sense. Okay.
The top one is the dorsal fin.
That's right. Okay. We don't have to worry about that. I do a little fin here.
We can probably ignore the other one too.
The other one. Okay.
Just because even though we're 45,
it's still silly.
We're still 13 years old at heart.
We are. We definitely are. We watch like those movies that are like 13-year-olds find hysterical. We love like Napoleon Dynamite and
I don't think 13-year-olds find that hilarious anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. All right, so I'm going to now put some of the patterns on the fish. They're just splotches, and you can do red, you can do yellow, you can do mix red and yellow and get orange, you can do black. You could make it pattern just like your koi was last week.
That would actually be kind of cool.
That's kind of what I intended it for.
Yeah.
So mine last week, he had this sort of coral red, which I made by mixing red and yellow. And I'm just dabbing it on. It came back along here. And then there was another spot behind this fin that just kind of came along to the tail. It might be turning slightly pink because of the wet white paint, but you know, it's underwater. It maybe wouldn't be as vivid.
And you don't want to get too worried about trying to be too detailed.
Yeah,
on
it
the
won't
koi.
look quite right. And then I had some yellow areas to dab. Another one here. And we have to put a shadow behind the fish. Right now it really does not look like it's in place properly. And now I have black. That's good enough for me for the patterns. If you're able to, you can put on tiny little eyes. And if you're able to, you could do the little whiskers, but that's not necessary. Looks like I didn't do it on that original painting. Oh, there's a close-up of it on the instructions. That's nice. Eric puts together my instructions. He's one of the teachers at the studio, and he's also a graphic designer, and he's awesome. I just send him the pictures, and he makes it happen. Okay, so I'll do little fins or little whiskers that come off here. Do a little dorsal fin, just a white stripe down the top. But one thing that's really important, I want to shade around the fish so it really looks like it fits in, and it looks like this one did, where it has that nice muted shade that goes all the way around the left side, and then we will be done. Okay.
Say it isn't so.
You said so.
Oh, no, that's no. Mm-hmm. I said it, but that's your drinking game, not mine.
All right, so I want to make a really, really light, and light I mean like pale, not a lot of paint pigment color wash to shade around the left side of the koi. And I make that with water and black using your littlest brush. More water than black. You want the tiniest little bit of black you can get in there. So here, let me pull up my palette. Here's what mine looks like. There. Very, very watered down black. If it doesn't, if it doesn't show up when I paint it on here, I can add a little more black pigment to it. But I'm just going to outline. It's like you're outlining the left side of the fish, and like you can go along the fins too. I can always add more if I need it a little darker, a little more standout. This was where I totally went extra. When I got the Fuji painting done, I was like, what if? Sometimes I need my artist brain to quiet down for a little bit. But I do think that's kind of a fun addition to have the koi on there.
It is. And I like
ties them together.
Yeah, I like the way that tied the two paintings together.
There we go. Finito. All done. Completo.
There we are. We're back on.
Yeah.
Hey.
So let's do it.
We had twice. You did it twice right there.
One of these days I'll learn. I want to sign the painting now, and I use my smallest brush. Whatever color you love. Maybe a color we haven't used much on here, or, I'll just do red.
Yeah, that would be real
it would, like, the Japanese paintings, they would sign with, like, red. Mm-hmm. They had, like, a stamp or something, didn't they?
Are we confusing China and Japan?
We could be. We should stop talking right now.
We should.
Okay, so I just put my little red signature down there. You are welcome to do whatever color you want to sign your painting with. And we apologize for a little bit of a chaotic start. It ended up being fun.
I'm going to zoom in.
Overall. And hope you guys had a good time too.
Yeah.
I hope you're having a good time keeping yourself busy at home. We're trying to do the same. Packing up the kits has been really helpful, actually. Yeah. Taking a lot of the...
I kept myself busy drinking.
Yeah. So I do want to talk. Go ahead.
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, did you sew it?
Yes, I did. I did. Next week I'm officially releasing watercolor.
Ooh,
I'm super excited. I got all the bottles today that I had ordered. Really, this whole thing just kind of pushed me. I needed a push.
Yeah.
I'm sad that it took a global pandemic to give me the push, but I needed a push to just step out of my comfort zone of using acrylics.
Way to make it all about you, Jen. Way to make it all about you.
I'm pretty excited. We'll hopefully have watercolor kits that you can buy and we can ship to you next week.
No, I think you're absolutely right, though. I think this has been a... the first couple days were definitely a whole lot of, I'm just going to leave it right there.
Snap.
Yeah.
Fudge.
Fruitcakes. We really have plunged and immersed ourselves into really making this Go Box work, and I think it's been a good thing because we've really been excited to do it, and I'm glad that you're finally going to do the watercolors because you are ready.
I'm ready. I've been teaching myself for about close to 2 years, and it's not what I started with. I started originally with acrylics.
Oh, we need to stop looking at the monitor.
I'm looking at the camera.
I'm looking at the monitor.
I started with acrylics, moved to oils, and worked with oils for a long time, then back to acrylics and watercolors. Kind of a new game for me. I guess new compared to 25 years of other painting. But I've been real happy with what's happening with it.
I feel like watercolor is your true medium, honestly.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, we'll see you guys soon. The April kits will be going out. We have the project one half of the way done, and we'll get the rest of it finished and show you what we're doing. We had talked about last time about doing more live streams, and we'll try to do more, but it's really going to be based a lot on how much we get caught up on doing the regular videos. What did we add, like 8 or 9, 10. Yeah, I've got this week alone I have about 6 videos on my agenda to film, so I'll be doing, most of them are kids paintings. That's fun. I love doing the kids paintings. They take about an hour. They take about an hour to film and about 3 hours to edit and another hour to upload to YouTube and about an hour for the kids to do. At our studio, the kids' classes are always an hour long, and it's perfect because any longer than that, and they get bored. and we promise with the kids-specific paintings, we do not drink alcohol or talk about alcohol while we're doing them. We might think about it. We think about it. You maybe don't want. We might wish for it. That coffee cup might be a little bit more than coffee, but we would never let anybody know the truth. Yeah, we're kid appropriate. We've got 2 of them, so we definitely have 2 of them, and they were not being very helpful tonight keeping the dog out of here. But sometimes Greta will
poke her head in and try to get Suki to come out. But
Yeah.
Suki's our old girl. She's 14, and she's definitely Jenny's dog. Jenny is definitely her person, and whenever she hears her voice in another room, she tries to get to her. And like we said, she is a tank. She doesn't see real great, and she just pushes through whatever's in her way.
Even if it's a camera.
Yeah, and like to give you an idea, if you were to see our setup, we have 5 tripods right in front of us with different, actually 6. So
I'm glad you guys can't see the rest of this room.
It's a good
It's
thing.
embarrassing.
But it's there's a lot of stuff for her to bump into and knock and bang, zip bang, boom zang.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we could talk all night if we wanted to, but I don't think we want to keep people that long.
No. Thank you for joining. Subscribe to our page if you like it. Click the bell for notifications.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time we paint on here, which will be very, very soon. We've posted lots of videos this week, so.
And I also just want to point out, I did it a couple weeks ago. You know, if you really want to support us, you know, buy a box.
Yeah.
You know, go to our website, gobox.com, visit the shop. It says right at the top of the menu, it says the shop.
The shop.
And that's what's gonna, you know, make us able to keep making these videos for you guys. And we'll see.
And
you
we've got them as low as $25. And
we've got that special promo going on.
we've got a promo code. What is the promo code?
It is housebound, all capital letters, one word, and that is valid for right now through the end of March of 2020.
Nice.
And I got to say March of 2020 because I don't know if somebody might stumble on this in a year from now and be like, hey, how come this code isn't working?
But yeah, so that'll save you 15%, right? Is that what it is?
15%.
It's a pretty deal. And then you can use your own brushes. You can, you know, if you have some old paint brushes at home, you don't have to use what we're using. Like I said, it's not usually the brush. It's kind of like how you paint it, the lesson, the steps, all that.
And if you have ordered a box and haven't received it yet, one of the things that we are having a little bit of struggle with is actually getting brushes in.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a shipment expected.
They're back ordered. But I have other ones that I've been sending.
We've got some that are expected in later this week, and but as far as normally our brushes come in fairly timely, but from what I understand, the shipping services and stuff are kind of pushing things like that to the side because they got medical supplies that they're trying to get to people. So, which is understandable. I totally get it. And in fact, most of our paintings you could almost just do with fingers. You could almost finger paint them if you wanted to.
You're talking a lot.
So we're doing informative stuff right now. That was you talked a lot for an hour and 15 minutes.
It's your turn.
No, it was an hour and a half. Oh my gosh, we're almost at 2 hours.
We can call each other out because we've been married for 23 years. Yeah, 23.
24 come October.
Cheers, you guys. Thanks so much. We enjoy doing this for you guys and hope you enjoy watching it. Thanks again.
It's good.
Peace out. Peace out.
Peace out.